You want me to say it? I'll say it. Welcome into the Primary Residential Mortgage Armchair Quarterback.
Got that out.
This is the great Tony Lombardi, who can't say that, but don't worry about it. And this is the even greater Dean Johnson from Primary Residential Mortgage. I'm Drew Forrester. Let's talk some Ravens.
From Drew's Morning Dish.
From drewsmorningdish.com.
We're good. We're good.
Armchair quarterback, no arms, Drew.
No
arms.
I know.
No arms.
I can still throw, but we know if you're the armchair quarterbacks, you should have arms. But
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's
well, we need a furniture, sponsor.
We're 2-1. We're doing better than the Orioles.
Slightly.
Yeah, right.
And they're playing 2
Right. We're doing better than the
on
Orioles.
a Wednesday.
Right.
Anyway, let's get into it. We'll talk about the offense first. We're going to go offense, defense, special teams, coaching staff, and then we'll get into some league news, a come on man later on in the program, and also Drew's stone cold lead pop likes.
Well, the reverse.
Dislikes.
But
Dislikes.
No. I'm going to let me make sure I say this the right way. I'm so convinced of the outcome of these 3 games that we're going to go the opposite way because I'm almost sure they're going to hit that way. Does that make sense?
You're asking our viewers to go the opposite way.
You'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a surprise.
I feel really good about these 3 games.
You felt good last weekend, too.
We're off to a blazing start so far.
We are.
Award-winning, I think, is what they say.
Okay, let's just work through the offense. Let's just start with the obvious. Joe Flacco, your thoughts through 3 games, and then let's focus in a little bit more on the Denver game.
I think we had 2 games in 1 game, but this most recent game, Joe looked comfortable. I like that they didn't dumb down the game plan, even though it was pouring down rain. Joe said, let's go out there and let's zing it around. They threw the ball 40 times. They ran the ball 28 times. And Joe looked a heck of a lot more comfortable with some play action, with a few screens. Can you believe they actually threw a screen play? He looked a lot more comfortable to me. And, the proof was in the pudding because we went down early, and it was nice to see him just stick with it and keep us in there.
I thought it was one of Marty's best games ever. And I'm not a huge Marty Morningwig fan, but I thought his plan of get away from Miller, try to get the play, the direction of the play away from him. I think it's one of those we know that you know that we know kind of deals. They knew Miller was going to play on the weak side, was going to go up against Hurst. They knew that. So they chipped somebody over there to help. They went away from him as much as they could. I thought Marty, that was one of the best games he ever had. I mean, Joe has definitely, as Dean said, Joe's played well, but we put a lot of emphasis, obviously, on these coordinators.
They moved him around, too. They rolled him out. They did 3-step drops.
Marty had a good game. Marty was one of his better games.
He really did. When you can neutralize Von Miller, that's a good game plan. And they did a couple of things. One thing I thought was really cool what they did was they flanked out Alex Lewis all the way to the far left. And it confused Von Miller. So he fouled him out there like saying, somebody's got to cover him. He's lined up as a eligible receiver. So they sent him out there and ended up being a big play for the Ravens. So I think you're right. I think Marty did a great job with the game plan, and they looked good. They came out smoking against the Denver Broncos, and even though they got behind early with that block punt, they were able to keep their composure. And that's something we've seen the Ravens so far do this year. Even when they got down 21-0 in Cincinnati, they fought back and got back in the game.
Totally. And, if we're going to talk about offense, as I said to you guys before we started, Mark Andrews being a big part of the game plan, working in between the hash marks, I thought was huge for them because we weren't just running the ball, we were working the middle of the field. I'm really excited to see Hayden Hurst come back and have 2 of those guys angling in through there in the middle. Because Joe loves tight ends. He always has.
Right, and I thought he did. It was the first game we've really seen Joe use the sideline. And we haven't seen much of that, which is probably his biggest forte as a thrower, right? Is that ball to the sideline. He threw 3 or 4 great passes. Crabtree caught them finally, which was good to see. And, it's a quarterback's league. And you can talk all you want about people always say defense wins championships and playmakers and this. It's always about the quarterback. And you're going to see that in San Francisco now, right? Their season's pretty much over with. You got to have good quarterback play. It doesn't mean he's going to win the game, but you got to have a guy that knows what he's doing. Look at what's going on in Kansas City right now with that kid. He's flawless so far, right?
He's smoking.
13 touchdowns.
Right. So it's a quarterback's league. And Joe, I think Joe's played really well. He had the bad throw in Cincinnati, but you can almost discount anything that happens when he's in Cincinnati because it's just his Achilles heel. For whatever reason, Marvin knows how to defend him.
When you get back to Marty and with Joe, what I really liked about the Denver game was the ball distribution. These guys came in, these guys being Brown, Crabtree, and Snead, they all came in with an idea of having a certain role in that offense. And that role, Snead would be the guy that ran the digs, moved the chains. You have Crabtree working the perimeter, and you have Brown hitting some home runs and running some tight routes. And those things are all playing out. I thought that was on big display against the Denver Broncos.
Brown is starting to look like a favorite. I mean, a little bit of a favorite. I mean, Crabtree's doing exactly what we thought he would do, but I like that Brown's not just going for home runs. Brown's running good routes. He's staying in the middle of the field sometimes. They're moving him around. I've been very, very, very surprised of how short-handed he was. I thought he was more of just a speedster. But the distribution's great. I mean, Max Williams caught balls. Mark Andrews caught balls. I mean, they're moving the ball all around. It's nice to see.
And to your point before, Andrews is doing a nice job. I think he reminds me a lot of Dennis Pitta, the way he plays and works inside the hash marks. And
with better hips.
Yeah, let's hope so, right?
Yeah.
And Hayden Hurst, he reminds me of, in practice, when he did practice during the preseason, a lot of Todd Heap. So if they can get a Todd Heap and a Dennis Pitta out of this first
and Andrews is a big guy. I mean, when he got that head of steam,
real big guy,
and forget about the jump and the hurdle move, but I mean, he's just he's a load. He's going to be a load to bring down.
What about the running game, guys? Because this time last year, through 3 games, the Ravens averaged 4.3 yards per carry. Now they're averaging 3 yards per carry. Maybe circumstances and game conditions dictated some of that. They got behind in a big way against Cincinnati. Maybe that dictated some of it. But the blocking assignments and the way they're coordinated on that offensive front are not so coordinated. What are your thoughts on the running game so far?
Well, I don't think we've seen the best of it clearly, and I'm not sure that we are a great run blocking unit. But I kind of like the differences between the two of them. I think in some ways it's a benefit to have two sort of distinctly different guys that are both pretty effective. And I know John said something the other day about he thinks Buck Allen might be an elite running back in the league. I was like, geez, John, slow down. But they both definitely have different kind of roles. I watch Collins sometimes, and body type may be different, but I'd liken his style to Jamal. I've said that before. I think when he gets going downhill, it's really hard to stop him. Buck is a little bit more versatile. He can catch the ball. I just like the fact that the two of them aren't identical, and that you can't just say, well, if Buck gets it, he's kind of going to do the same thing that Collins gets it. They're going to run the same sort of plays. I don't think that's the case at all.
No, and Buck, he's not a flashy guy, but he's a clutch guy. He kind of gets it done when they really need it. If you remember last year when they were trying to grind out the clock and the opponent knew they were going to run the ball, he was still getting 3-4 yards a carry. And
he's also elusive a little bit when he runs pass routes, which is nice. I mean, not necessarily the fastest, the biggest, maybe even not the surest hands, but even like a Derek Mason who was a wide receiver, Buck kind of finds those little seams and gaps, and Joe trusts him. It's very clear Joe trusts him.
He's becoming a professional. Mm-hmm. And that's what it really looks like out there on the field. So, but I agree with you with John with respect to every team the Ravens are about to play is the greatest team they've ever played.
I heard him say that the other night about the Steelers. About how I tell you, these guys, we know what we're in for. These guys, this is such a great team, such a well-coached team. I'm driving along, almost ready to drive off the road. I'm like, are you kidding me? Tomlin's terrible. Come on. But it's Ravens-Steelers. You never know what's going to happen.
Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. Let's go to the defensive line. Any thoughts pop in your minds when you take a look at that game?
I watched every play. I think for the conditions, they had a great game. Denver didn't run the ball on us at all, and we still didn't have Michael Pierce playing, who I believe we do get back this week and we could use. But the defensive line looked great. They're still rotating. Zadarius Smith had a phenomenal game, and that really bodes well for us. No dumb, I know we're going to talk about it later, no dumb roughing the passer penalties on us, which are limiting a lot of other teams. But we looked strong, we looked stout. That Denver didn't get much going.
I don't want to hop on the Kenny Young bandwagon because it's full. I can't. You got to pay double to get a seat. But he really looks like the real deal. If the first 3 games are any indication of what you might get from him in the next 3 or 4 years, he looks like a potential sort of steal of the draft, right? In where they took him based on what kind of contribution you're going to get, and he's been almost a game changer, I think.
So, by the way, how much help did having Albert McClellan in there, who we talked about a week ago? He really seemed to calm things down. I believe that's what kind of cut Kenny Young loose, having McClellan in there with C.J. Mosley out. Week earlier, he wasn't even on the team.
It's a week-to-week thing, though, right? Denver came in, Case Keenum, he's okay. Their wide receivers are decent. They're not great. This is like the 6 furlong horse now goes to run a mile and a quarter, right? Coming up Sunday, It's a little bit of a different level of quality.
Sometimes you
On
don't
the
have the
road, too.
personnel to exploit other teams' weaknesses,
Right.
and I think that Steelers know how to exploit the linebackers, the Ravens linebackers' inability to make, to cover in space.
Right.
So we'll see what happens there, and that's one of Albert McClellan's Achilles' heels, really.
Yep.
But I agree with you, having that veteran presence next to him, it's almost like Ray Lewis. Not that he's Ray Lewis by any stretch of the imagination, but having that veteran presence next to you, knowing where to go, where to set up pre-snap and that sort of thing, I think that helps a young guy like Kenny Young, because if you think about Ray's days here, those guys next to him always were better next to Ray Lewis than they were when they cashed in at some
Amen.
other team.
No doubt. I mean, Ed Hartwell got into Atlanta, and they're like, "Where's the guy we thought we were getting?"
Bart Scott,
Yeah,
Daniel Ellerby, all of all of them.
Kruger, all of them, right? No doubt. Right, no question.
But in the secondary, they're a little nicked up right now with the cornerbacks. You got Jimmy Smith still on the shelf, one more game with suspension. You've got Averett, who is now out. He was out last week, probably iffy this week. And Kennedy's on IR with the kind of IR he can bring him back, I guess, after 8 games. Right. So they're a little thin right now. And they let go of Daniel to make room for this new center that they picked up from the Bears, or what used to be with the Bears, in Grasso. So thoughts on all those moves?
Take the over Sunday night.
Absolutely.
I don't even know what it is. 80? Take it. Whatever it is.
Well,
I think it's 51.
Is it really? They might do that in the first half.
It's gonna be a tough one. The weather actually looks good on Sunday night. I already looked ahead. The weather looks good, but I mean, they're gonna move Antonio Brown around, and Brandon Carr, Marlon Humphrey. They're gonna have their hands full.
Carr's the guy that is, he's not the X factor because there's 10 other guys, but Carr is probably the guy that they're gonna pick on Sunday night if they get the chance. And with those weapons they have, that Washington kid looked good. James Washington looked good the other night in Tampa Bay.
And you got Juju and you got Antonio Brown.
And the tight ends are good. I mean, it's going to be a battle Sunday. There's no question.
How about that stiff arm on Monday night?
Oh my Lord!
You're taking away my come on, man.
Did you hear the bad news about that kid? He played the rest of the game with a torn PCL. He's out now.
Wow.
He was so determined to come back and not retire that he went back out and played with a torn knee ligament. As soon as it happened, I'm like, well, that guy's retiring for sure. He can't go back in the locker room.
I always thought the McGahee stiff arm in Oakland a few years back.
Oh, this was
better. This was textbook.
This was terrible. Oh man.
That's embarrassing. But you mentioned Tyus Bowser and Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju should be a Raven.
I remember it. I remember it vividly.
Yeah, right.
I remember draft night. Yeah, Juju would be great with the Ravens right now. Would have, still on a rookie contract.
He's got great hand. That kid can really play. I mean, I know there was a lot of talk. When he was at USC, everybody was saying, well, wait till he gets to the NFL, his build might not accommodate it. Dude, that guy's a rock star.
All those critics sounded exactly the same way as when Anquan Bolden was coming out, at Florida State. And look what his career was like. And he was compared to Anquan Bolden. You would think, wow, that really worked out pretty well for Joe Flacco. Maybe get a guy like that. But they got this guy Bowser, and he's a really athletic linebacker. He played basketball, I think, at Houston as well. But that athleticism isn't translating to productivity on the field. No,
he cannot block. Since we're going to talk about special teams next.
Right.
He can't block. I mean, that 0-0 first possession, you're punting out of your end zone, and Tyus Bowser, whiffs on his guy. I mean, that was poor Sam. Sam Cook. He didn't stand a chance.
How would you like to be in that breakout room with Jerry Rosberg watching that film
on Monday morning?
Tyus Bowser?
Oh my gosh!
But if Tyus Bowser is trying to get defensive snaps,
let's
that's not the way to do it.
Let's rerun that. No, Coach, you don't have to. No, we want to. No, please, Coach.
This is exactly what you don't do. Show him, Tyus.
Right.
So special teams. Now the Wolfpack, being Morgan Cox, Justin Tucker, and Sam Cook. Sam Cook is a great punter.
Which one's Allen, by the way? Of the Wolfpack,
we can pick
of the Hangover. Which one would be Crazy Allen? It would be Bradley Cooper. Tucker would be Cooper, I think, right? I mean,
he'd
nice
be
looking
Cooper.
guy.
He's also crazy though, a little bit too.
I think they all are. Right. I mean, they every time, and I'm not out there nearly as much anymore, obviously, as I used to be, but any time you used to see them together, I mean, it was like they were grade school kids sitting at the same cafeteria table. Yeah. I mean, they are always together.
Look, let's start with Tucker though. He is dialed in. I mean, there's no. I mean, it was 2 of his games have been in pouring down rain on grass. Dialed in. Right. I mean, it's not even.
He's like a guy that hits his wedges from 80 yards to a foot on every hole. Just hits it in there.
I mean, the conditions, the snap could be high, the ball's wet. It doesn't matter. He's just dialed in. I mean, all the kicking problems the league's had in the first 3 weeks, which I didn't really expect. I mean, we don't have those issues. It's wonderful.
How about Boswell from Pittsburgh? He can't make anything.
And did they just sign him to a
He
long-term
can't-
deal?
Yeah, and there was like $7 million of dead money if they cut him, which they can't cut him.
Right.
And Tomlin gave it the old, tell you this is our kicker. This kid makes a lot of good kicks. Yeah, just not in the games.
But you're right, Dean. It's one of those things that you take for granted because the Ravens have Justin Tucker now, had Matt Stover before that. In between, there was a little hiccup. But those two guys are
This guy will be here for 10 more years. I mean, they'll pay
If he
him.
wants
They'll
to be,
pay him
yeah,
every
sure.
time. They'll pay him. They're not going to
He
let
could be
him
a Hall
go.
of Famer.
If he stays on this
He
pace.
could be a Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah.
He's
And that's
not-
that's a really big statement for
a kicker, yeah.
I mean, Vinatieri is going to be a Hall of Famer, right? I think we would all agree.
What's he, 45 now or something like that?
45 or 46. He'll be a Hall of Famer.
This guy is so flexible.
this kid could be
He's only 185 pounds. He's not a big guy. He just generates. I mean, it's
Gotta
like
be the Royal
golf
Farms
swing.
coffee. It's got to be the Royal Farms coffee, right? That's what does it for him. It's
He
gotta be.
generates so much torque. I mean, it just sounds like the ball's exploding when he
No
hits
doubt.
it.
The Rofo coffee. Now,
doubt.
let's talk about Sam Cook. Great punter, directional punter, drops the ball inside, not just the 20, but the 10-yard line a lot of times. But I think one of the things that's really understated in that Wolfpack gang of his is how great of a holder he is.
He's phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
He
Spins
keeps
it.
Morgan Cox employed.
Yeah, gets it, spins it, hits it. I mean, you're right, 100%.
He hasn't dropped off though either. You'd expect him to lose a little velocity, a little bit of power on the longer stuff. He hasn't dropped off at all from what when I watch it.
He's a real, and what's, I really like him, and I did a couple of little things with him back when I was on the radio. He's a very unassuming guy. He's just a really good guy. If you saw him in the mall and you didn't really know he was Sam Cook, a professional punter, you just think he was some guy walking around with his kids. Like, he's a really unassuming guy.
I don't know if you ever saw him out at practice during camp when they weren't using the jugs gun to simulate punts. He would just throw them downfield. And the guy could throw the ball 60
Oh, he was
yards.
a high school quarterback.
He can really wing it.
Yeah.
Nebraska might need him, by the way.
That's funny.
Oh my God. They are terrible.
Well, San Francisco 49ers might need him too.
Yeah, right. No doubt.
So let's move on to the coaching staff and how they performed.
Terrible. No.
John, thoughts on, I know that after he seemed to be pretty pleased with
Team
with
was
things,
prepared. The team was
but-
prepared. The team didn't drop off in the bad weather. They shot themselves in their. The Broncos shot themselves in the foot a little bit, penalties wise. We didn't. I thought we were ready. The game plan, like you said, Marty's game plan was spot on. Even though we even got down early, and it stayed spot on.
I think John, I know he's sort of maligned, I think, within the football community, meaning the fans. If you watched that little snippet after the game on Sunday when Weddle gave him the ball, it was his birthday, and Weddle gave him the game ball. And I always felt this, even 10 years ago, 2008, 10, 11, whatever. The players really, really love John. It's been, I can tell you almost, and I have to think back, but I can remember a lot of times being in the locker room in 03 and 04 and 05 and hearing a lot of snark and a lot of little whispers about Brian from players. McAllister was famous for it. Almost after every game, he would have something to say about Brian. Around the locker or just a snarky comment. I don't really ever remember hearing anyone say that about John. And I haven't been around there much for the last 3 or 4 years, but in 08 through 12, 13, I don't remember guys picking at John, players. And I think when you look at that little clip the other day, you can see how much those guys really love him.
I think that's true, but I also think that Harbaugh has shaped this team in his likeness probably a little bit more than Brian did. I think Brian was more about let's get anybody in here that can help us win. I don't care about the
100%
attitudes.
agree with that. Yeah, so. John definitely wants. John, Dean would know this as a business owner. Sometimes sometimes there's a group of people that might make your business better, but might drive you nuts. Sometimes you reduce that, but you surround yourself with people that you like or are of your sort of ilk. And I think John's definitely done that.
John and Ed Reed didn't get along, but John knew Ed Reed was a superstar talent. He inherited him when he got here, and he wrote it out. But now, to your point, Tony, now he is replacing with his kind of people. They draft the same kind of people. They're trying to build the team with the same kind of people, and I think that's what you're seeing.
I think the heat's on Wink Sunday night for sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's talk about Wink a little bit and think about, do you see any difference in this defense this year than we've seen from Dean Pease in previous years?
They're not blitzing a whole heck of a lot more.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Zadarius Smith is playing better, so we're getting a little more, at least the last week or two, we're getting a little more pressure.
Off the edges, though, we're not really seeing as much maybe as we did before.
Correct.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And we've had a couple of injuries. I think you get Jimmy. I don't think you're going to see the most out of Wink until you get Jimmy Smith back. Personally.
But what do you do Sunday night, right? Like if we played that game right now of okay, your wink, what's the one thing, because this is what they all do, right? We all know this. The coordinators all sit around and they say, okay, and put the game plan together. We have one big goal, and whatever that goal, what is the goal, right? On the flip side, Brady always used to say, when we would sit around and talk about the Ravens, the goal was don't ever design a play or throw the ball in Ed's direction.
Right.
Always, whatever we do, it's a little bit like what the Ravens did to counter Von Miller. What do you do on Sunday night if you're Wink? How do you game plan this, and who do you try to negate, figuring that at this point Bell's not playing?
I think they think they can take the run away with Connor. I think they think in a base defense they're going to take away the run pretty much. But the big question is they've never been big fans of moving their best corner around to shadow Antonio Brown. They don't like to do that.
Right.
So you're not going to see Marlon Humphrey chasing him and everybody else rotating. So it's a tough one.
You think that's going to be true this time? I'm not so sure this time.
I'd love to see Marlon Humphrey with his, he's younger, he's fast, he's physical, he's not as big as Jimmy Smith. I'd love to see him shadowing Antonio Brown, but they've never done it in the past. Maybe Wink will do it.
Because when you look at Brandon Carr, he started to show signs of struggling against the Broncos. I'm hearing he's a little nicked up right now. And he's got that thing in his head, almost like a Cal Ripken. I've got this consecutive game streak going on, so I'm going to keep plowing forward. But, I think if, looking at the film against Denver, if I see Antonio Brown lined up, I'm going that way every time. I mean, do it until you beat me. And I don't think you can.
I would say to me, if I'm game planning, I'm trying to come up with some sort of strategy alignment-wise, to keep them from hitting the big play. And I'm not saying
you're dropping Weddle deep.
Yeah, I don't want to play a prevent, but I'm willing to give up a certain part of the field and then try to defend. I'm not saying I'm willing to give up 8 yards. I'm willing to give up that portion of the field, and then I'm going to say to my linebackers, it's up to you now. You've got this part of the field to cover, but I don't want them picking up 35 and 40 and 45 yards at a clip. Not that they would do that 10 times a game, but I want to keep them from doing that twice a quarter. And obviously, that's what they're going for. They're going for the home run.
Heading into the Denver game, I looked at it as a must-win game. The reason I thought that, I know it's only the third game of the season, but you have to hold serve at home. This team shows that they can't win regularly on the road. Not many teams in the NFL do, but particularly the Ravens seem to struggle on the road. So I thought it was an AFC conference game. They needed to win that game. More so just to keep the fan base involved. They go 1-2 and into Pittsburgh. I think that looks ugly right away. And then they've got 3 road games in a row. So I looked at the game against the Broncos as a real must-win. This game with the Steelers, I think, is a game that, not that it's a must-win, it's an important win always because it's an AFC division rival, but I think it's a big win because this would make a statement about this year's Baltimore Ravens, 2018. This is a team that's lost these games the past 3 and 4 years. But if they've really gotten over the hump, they win this game on Sunday night.
Well, I can't give you my pick yet, but I'm feeling good.
It'd be nice to be 3-1 at the quarter pole. It'd be really nice to be 3-1 at the quarter pole.
I'm not very impressed with Pittsburgh, by the way. I'm
Defense is horrible.
The defense is terrible. I'm very impressed with the quarterback. I think he's remarkable still. You can't. He's like the guy from Friday the 13th. You think you got him dead, and 25 minutes later, he's back driving in a car again. Like, it's crazy. I like him. I don't say I like him. I mean, I have great respect for him. The wide receivers are terrific. The Connor kid's nowhere near. They can say whatever they want up there. He's nowhere near as good as Bell. And I think their defense is terrible. I'm just not. They win 8 games every year just because of the quarterback.
Right.
If that kid gets
the
hurt,
quarterback with Antonio Brown.
but if that kid gets hurt, and they've got to put Randolph or Rudolph, whatever his name is, or anyone else in there, they don't win. They win because of that kid at quarterback.
Yep.
For sure.
Agreed.
Not a kid anymore either, Drew.
I know. Well, they're all kids. You're a kid to me. You're not, but anybody 15 years younger than me is a kid.
Okay, this is the Primary Residential Mortgage Armchair Quarterback. Got that right. How about that?
Right.
We'll be right back after this break. We'll be back in 90 seconds. Don't go away.
Find nearest bakery.
Showing nearby bakeries.
Find party supply store near here.
The 2018 Corolla, loaded with the latest tech and Toyota Safety Sense standard.
I got it all.
Where's my mom?
She wasn't on the list.
Right now, get $1,000 customer cash, or qualified buyers get 0% APR financing for 60 months on a stylish new 2018 Corolla. Toyota, let's go places.
Welcome back to the Primary Residential Mortgage Armchair Quarterback. I'm Tony Lombardi. This is Drew Forrester. That there is Dean Johnson. He's Division President for Primary Residential Mortgage. And Drew has his Drew's Morning Dish. You can check that out on drewsmorningdish.com. Before we went to break, we started to recap the Ravens season so far, offense, defense, special teams, and the coaching staff. Now we want to get into some league news. And guys, the rumor mill is starting to buzz around right now because the trading deadline's coming in October. There's quarterbacks that are going down around the league. And one quarterback that seems to be the apple of some team's eye is RG3.
Quietly, Tony. Very quietly.
Robert Griffin III. Now, the hot rumor seems to be, if there is a hot rumor at this point in time, is RG3 to the 49ers. And it makes sense. They just lost Garoppolo. Their backup, I can't even remember the guy's name. He's going to be starting and he hasn't had much experience. And RG3 has had experience with the Shanahans. So, your thoughts on that?
It makes a heck of a lot of sense. I just wonder aloud. I mean, how much are the Ravens going to try to extract for something like that? I mean, what is RG3 worth to somebody?
Well, Teddy Bridgewater, they got a third for him? That's a
lot.
lot.
If you got a fourth for RG3, I think DeCosta and Ozzie do it all day long.
I would agree, except I would say this. We're making that assumption without really knowing what they think about their chances with Lamar if something were to happen to Flacco. And this is a league where 1 or 2 games can shift the whole season, right? You can be 9-6 going into the last 2 games, or last game of the year. You can be 9-5 going into the last 2, needing 1 win. And if Joe gets hurt in the 14th game and you got to play Lamar the last 2 and you go 9-7, you might not make it. Well, everything can shift in 1 or 2 weeks. So if they're comfortable with Lamar going forward and they believe in their heart that if Joe got the bird flu Sunday and he couldn't play, could they trot Lamar out there and win? Then the RG3 thing kind of makes sense.
I love having RG3. I love the insurance
I do
policy.
Too. But I'm saying that not knowing what they feel about
we don't. But
Lamar.
and we do know how they feel about 4th-round draft picks.
Right.
They love them.
Right.
So do you think RG3 is on the team in the event that Joe goes down for a game or 2, not a season-ending injury, but a game or 2, that RG might be able to pick off 1 or 2 of those wins?
Well,
and
I think there's, first of all, you have to look at what's happened so far. They've played 3 games. He's been inactive all 3.
Right.
So they're willing, on a short-term basis, they're willing to take a gamble that if Joe got hurt on the 4th play of the game, if he got the Alex Cobb blister where he threw 4 pitches the other night and couldn't pitch anymore, if Joe got an injury on the first series, they would have to go the whole game with Lamar. They're obviously comfortable with that. But to your question, are they comfortable if Joe gets an ankle sprain, he's out 4 weeks?
I mean, think about it. They kept him inactive against the best. Some would argue the best pass rush in the NFL. So he was Joe. I mean, we just talked about.
That tells me they've got some confidence in Jackson.
Correct.
That's what it tells me. Like, if they didn't have the confidence that if Joe goes down, Lamar can handle the load for the rest of this game, then RG3 would be active.
Now, Lamar almost went down because Joe sent him up with that
The old hospital ball from my soccer days.
He was stretched out. He was definitely stretched out on that one.
I think that was Joe's way of saying,
welcome to the NFL.
let me see if I can fix this so I don't have to deal with this anymore. I'm going to throw one of these zingers over here and see if I can get his head knocked off. Joe wouldn't do
Now,
that.
Tony, I've got one league news to talk about. What about the Le'Veon Bell video? I wanted to talk about the Le'Veon Bell potential
on the
trade.
jet ski?
On the jet ski. I mean,
He looked a little hefty.
he looked a little hefty, and he looked like he was having a good time, and he didn't care who knew about it. But there's some talk about the Jets being interested in him. Maybe a trade with a nod, wink, wink. We got a deal in place because if he gets traded, Le'Veon Bell's still an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year.
What would it take
This
to
was
get
really
him?
poorly handled, by the way.
Oh, yeah,
This
no
was
question.
really, really poorly handled. And it's easy to say all this now, and it's a little easier to say it when it's not your team. But the thing that they should have done from Jump Street with this kid is say, and I'm making up dates now, because this might not jive with the cap, so I'm just making this up. But you have to have a new deal by April 15th, or we're just going to deal you. We're just going to trade you. We don't want to do it, but we kind of have to do it because we can't. It's like what the Orioles did at the end of July. They didn't really want to get rid of Machado, but they didn't have any option.
Right.
They don't have a deal with you. I know the chances are that you're not going to be back, so I got to let you go. Same with Britton, and
It's different in football,
It
but
is, but the concept of it is I can't be held up all August and September waiting for you to come in because we're not giving you any more money, right? I mean, this is all this was. This was a game of, I want more money, we're not giving it to you. Yeah, sure you're not, you will.
Right.
No, we won't. And now here they are.
And
it
this
was just really poorly handled.
This afternoon, James Harrison just was quoted as saying his advice was, "Come on back, Le'Veon. practice all week, and then fake an injury every weekend. Just to get through the season and
That's some
not
team player there. Boy, I want that guy in my
totally.
organization.
Well, I think for him,
But the fact that he'd say that publicly,
sure.
I mean, it's insight into what they're, how some guys approach these
They
situations.
just should have dealt him in the offseason somehow. And again, easier to say that now, but they should have just said, April 15th, if you don't have a new deal, we're trading you.
to your point, Dean, about the injury, I can almost promise you that if he waits until week 10 to come back, he's doing that because then that franchise tag becomes the top 5 players in the league next year, which we're all going to be quarterbacks, right? So it's the average of the top 5 salaries in the league, and if he's come back in week 10, he'll get that.
Right.
But he comes back in week 10, he's going to have a hamstring. He's going to deal with the rest of the season.
I'm really surprised that he's not back for this game. And I
wish
I'm
he
not-
was, because I think Connor's a bigger threat
and
right now.
I'm not
right
trying
now.
to take sides on owner. Like from my days when I was in the soccer business, I'm sort of a pro management guy just by nature. But I think this is really, and I think the players in Pittsburgh have responded to this. This is a really bad thing for him to do, to me.
Well,
Like,
the players have.
at
Some of the players started to speak up, and then it kind of
at
shuttled
some
itself.
point, this shows to some degree. This shows that he's not really that engaged with those guys in the locker room, or he would have some empathy for them too. Like, hey, dude, you're taking money off of all of our tables if you're not in here, because the chances of us getting to the Super Bowl and winning are pretty slim without you. With you, we could probably beat anybody in the league.
And I don't know if you saw the things on Instagram. These Instagram posts were coming out about against the Steelers when they were playing the Chiefs, and Le'Veon Bell was liking them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I mean, again, like, why do you got to do that? If you just want to sit at home and watch the games and eat food and giggle to yourself,
Right.
Okay. But going on social media and liking and putting a heart up.
Because everybody's going to jump all over
Oh,
that.
sure. Right,
He knew
no doubt.
that was the point.
No doubt. Right. My league thing, I think so far, like we're 3 weeks into the league. This is definitely the funniest thing that's happened all year. Monday night, Patriots and Lions. Belichick's coming out of the tunnel. They got the camera. Yeah, they got a camera everywhere, right? These coaches are wearing GoPros at this point. So the Belichick's coming out of the tunnel, and there's a handful of kids against like a retaining wall. You know how it is at the Ravens game. There's 300 people down on the field before the game, and these kids are lined up on a retaining wall. And
They're all starry-eyed.
right, and I think, and I don't remember this specifically, but I've watched this meme like 50 times. I think they had Lion stuff on, but I don't remember. But they were kids. They were Ethan, my son's age, at 10, 11 years old. They got their hands out over the retaining wall, and there's 6 of them with their hands out, and all they just want to touch. They just want to touch from the coach. I don't even know if they know who it was.
And
for
Drew,
sure.
what did he do?
And he just walked right by him. He didn't even look at them. And he knew they were there. You can't not see that they're there. And he just walked right by him.
The evil empire.
Oh, it's hilarious so far. And I liked the post-game hug the other night with Matt Patricia. There was a real brief moment.
Very brief.
He hugged him.
Right.
And said something to him, and then it was gone.
And wouldn't you love to know what he
Then
said?
it was gone. Yeah, then it was gone.
We're on to Miami.
Yeah, we're on to Miami. Yeah. They got some problems there, I think.
Yeah, they do. They look like a really slow team.
Instead of I think, let's say hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, their defense does not look very good.
No.
I didn't see the Jacksonville game when they lost, 31-20, but the Lions game, they looked terrible defensively. I mean, Brady didn't have a great night, but some of that you're going to put on Patricia.
Well, the
right?
Lions
If
have
there's
struggled in the running game for so long.
100 yards.
Yeah.
If there's anyone that could have a one night of success against Brady, it would be Patricia. He's been there. He knows, right?
Yep.
It happens a lot.
Yeah,
with these
right.
systems.
So I think the more alarming thing wasn't that they scored 10; it's that they gave up those points, and that kind of they got gashed by their running game. And the Lions,
LeGarrette Blount.
Oh my God, the Lions haven't had a 100-yard game in forever.
Right.
People were standing up. The fans were so they knew it. They were standing up. They were so happy.
So speaking of alarming things, this rule with the flopping on the quarterback, it's so inconsistent. I don't know if you're a coach, what you say to your defensive lineman or your linebackers.
I mean,
how do you take down a quarterback?
The play that blew me away was the one in Tampa and Pittsburgh when McCoy comes up the middle, tries to pull up. He was mic'd up.
And he did pull up.
Sorry, Ben.
He's saying, sorry, Ben.
Sorry,
He's trying
Ben.
to grab him. He gives him a little bit of just a push. Ben Roethlisberger is 6'5", 250 pounds. He gives him a little bit of a push grab to hold on to him. While he's mic'd up, Ben even says, no problem, gets up, 15-yard penalty. It's ridiculous.
Pittsburgh got 4 of them called on them in 21 offensive plays. 4 of them. Tampa had 21 offensive plays, and the Steelers got 4 calls against them. And I said to you guys before, I think Tomlin said before the game, just go tackle the guy. Drive him into the ground if you can drive him into the ground. Hurt him if you can hurt. I don't even know what you would do. I've said this to you before when you and I've just been sitting around talking about sports in the NFL. I think there's going to come a time soon, and by that within 3 or 5 years, where you will not be able to grasp the quarterback. I think there's going to be a time when the only thing you can do is that to the quarterback.
Put flags on the quarterbacks.
Just do that. You can extend your arms, but you can't wrap. I honestly think that that's coming, and this is going to sound really bizarre. That might actually be better than this. This is crazy. You not being able to tackle the quarterback or having it
Clay
be determined.
Matthews has had 3
unbelievable.
in 3 weeks, all in crucial situations.
But one cost him the game.
And
if they don't make the playoffs by 1 game,
That's
that
it.
play cost
And the
him the game.
quarterbacks that he tackled, all 3 have said separately, it wasn't a penalty.
Right.
All 3 of them.
Well, if you look earlier in that game, Rodgers was, hog-tied and thrown to the ground and landed on, and there was no flag.
This is all about money. The owners get in a room, and they all sit around and they say, can't have my $28 million guy get hurt.
What about the guy that got hurt trying to pull up? Tore
Oh,
his
right.
ACL?
Dolphins
From the
defensive
Dolphins.
lineman,
Right.
yeah.
Yep, right. Yep.
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's a terrible rule. I mean, I get it. They're making $25 million a year. They are a valuable commodity. I completely get it. I saw somebody the other day, one of the talking heads on one of the shows, showing the differences in their equipment and showing the shoulder pads that most of the quarterbacks wear and how flimsy and thin they are.
Right.
And how, generally speaking, how unprotected they are because they want it that way. Because it's so much easier for them to throw if they're not encumbered by all this stuff. But that's on them, right? You can't make the rules different because this guy has light shoulder pads and these guys don't. They got to figure something out because it's affecting the outcomes of the games. And the people who wager, not me,
Which is a perfect segue.
the people that wager are getting ripped off.
Right.
It's going to really be, last thing I want to say about it, I think it's really going to be a big, big, big issue when we get to the playoffs. When you get to the last few weeks of the regular season and the playoffs.
Suddenly they let them play in the playoffs. The things that they called during the season are off the table.
Like the NBA. NBA institutes new rules. You get to the playoffs and
Well, hockey,
they're all out.
You got to be dead. In some cases, even if you're dead, they still let you. You don't get a penalty. There have been times
In the
playoffs in hockey, it's unbelievable.
But in preseason, this lowering the helmet penalty was called left and right.
Now you're not seeing.
I think they've called it twice
Right.
this whole
Now you're not-
season.
Right.
So they've made adjustments with that. And there have been plays when I said they probably should have called it right there, but they haven't. So they need to make adjustments with this quarterback thing. And I don't know if you guys saw it. Maybe we can show it to our visitors, our viewers now.
Oh yeah, there's a new way. I saw
With
this.
the 2 Green Bay fans.
Oh, yeah.
Guy and a
Pretty
girl.
good.
That was
This
great.
is pretty good. I'm not so sure about kissing the quarterback, although with Aaron Rodgers,
But they still threw the flag.
Aaron Rodgers, you never know. But yeah, but you laying the quarterback down on the ground, little pat on the head. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. We want to segue to our Stone Cold Lead Pipe reverse picks from Drew for this week, going into week 4. He's got 3 games. You want to
Follow along. You got to follow very carefully.
Okay, take it
All
away, Drew.
So here we go. I am a huge believer.
And by the way,
in
Drew, you've been
home
talking about this to me since, for 6 months.
No doubt. By the way, I told you that magician was going to win America's Got Talent.
You were correct.
I told you guys that.
He told me that one 6 months ago.
I told you that kid was going to win $1 million. I wish he'd make the Orioles disappear. So, they did actually. Yeah, right. I bring them back. So here's the deal. I love home underdogs. I am a huge. I don't bet because I've watched these games enough to know you're dumb if you bet. But I love the gambling aspect of golf. Of football.
And so does the
Thinking about
NFL.
Ryder Cup. Yeah. Absolutely right. It's the driver of the whole
Right,
thing.
NFL and fantasy football.
No question. So I love home underdogs. I am a huge fan of home underdogs. This weekend, there are 3 significant spreads. Seattle is giving the Cardinals 3 in Arizona with what looks to be, we assume, Josh Rosen at quarterback. That looks like a Seattle 27-10 win, right? That's what it looks like. There's no way that kid's beating the Seahawks.
Right.
That's just not happening.
So what are you saying?
Hold on. Titans are at home getting 4 from the Eagles.
Okay.
Titans are no quarterback. Mariota's got, Lord knows what happened to him. But they won last week, right? So they're not going to Jacksonville and winning and then coming home and beating the Eagles. but they're getting 4 points. And I look at that and I'm thinking, boy, they are dying for you to take the Titans, right? You're getting 4 points at home. And then the Saints are in New York to take on the Giants. They're giving the Giants, I think, 3.5.
Okay.
Giants are at home. Saints are okay on the road. They're not going up there and beating them by 3.5, right? We're going to take all the home teams, right? I mean, they're all getting points at home, and I've given you all the logic for why you take them. So we're going to take all of the favorites. So we're taking
The road favorites.
We're taking all the road favorites, and the reason we're doing that is because all the home teams are going to cover. Are you following me?
I consider myself a smart guy. Not
So
completely.
No, we're taking all the road. We're taking all the road favorites. Everything sets up for the home teams to cover.
And you're suggesting our
So go the
viewers
opposite
go
is
the
what
other
you're
way.
saying. Go the other way.
I'm saying Arizona is going to lose at home big to Seattle, just like we think. Philadelphia is going to go down there to Tennessee and give them the key to reality, just like we think. And New Orleans is going up there to the Giants, and it'll be close, but they'll beat them, 27-20.
Okay.
But that goes against the grain of everything I think, because I think all the home teams are going to cover, but they're not.
So let it be said. So let it be written.
Check back.
Yeah, check back and I'll tell you how I was right.
Right. Okay, let's segue into our new feature on the Armchair Quarterback. Come on, man. We're gonna mimic the ESPN what they do on Monday nights. So let's have our come on, man. So Dean, we'll start with you.
I'll go first, and I'm not going to name anybody specific. I was going to talk about Tyus Bowser, but the guy jumping over and blocking, the guy leapfrogging the line with the 1.5 steps. I don't know who I'm throwing the come on man at, but the whole situation's a come on man. I didn't see it coming. It's raining. He goes in the bed. He goes in the bad turf. Leapfrogs over, blocks the kick. Come on, man. Figure something out.
I love that.
If you're the Ravens,
too.
If you're the Ravens,
It's an
figure
athletic
something.
play. I
I know
like
if you're
it.
the Ravens,
Allowed.
it's the same thing that happened a couple years ago with New England. New England
Absolutely.
did the same thing to Justin Tucker when he had his big streak going. Come on, man. You got to see that coming. I mean, clearly we're susceptible to it. Somebody has seen something on film to say, this is the guy you can jump over because he doesn't know you're going to try to jump over him.
If you watch that replay, maybe we can get that on. The guy was like, he's rocking. He's ready to go.
Yeah, he knew. It was coming.
He didn't even touch him because that's the
No.
rule. You can't make contact. I mean, he cleared him.
was
It was beautiful.
Mine is, I don't know how much you guys get to D.C. I know you travel maybe a little bit more than we do down there. But the Redskins are hilarious. They, for years, told people there were no tickets. No tickets, right?
Oh, a big time 4,000 people
Couldn't
waiting list
get
or something
on
or
the
whatever.
list. It's 25 years. If your
25 years.
If you own season tickets,
Right.
your daughter you could will them to her, but that would be the only way she could get them. They've been saying for 2 decades, we don't have any tickets. There are no tickets to be had. The list is too long. You can't get in. And now, this week, they're advertising on all the bus stops down there in D.C. saying, yes, we have tickets. Come on, man. What have you been doing for 25 years? I mean, you've been lying for 20. There's a lot of lying that goes on down there in D.C. These guys have been lying for 25 years. And it finally caught up to them. And it hadn't just caught up to them like with 3,000 people. They had 51,000 people at the first game. 30,000 people didn't show up because they didn't think they could get tickets.
Come on, man.
It's crazy. Come on. Been lying for 25 years.
So we know, as people have gone to the game, Ravens games a lot of times, that as the weather declines, so do the number of women at games. When you said it's a fair assumption?
True.
Okay. So I decline too, because I don't go.
Okay.
But it rains.
But I'm judging on my wife.
Right,
So
right.
I'm not
I'm
going to
good.
go when it's cold. I'm
I'm
not going to
good.
go if it's raining, okay?
Right.
So, and wouldn't you say that there's more men at the games?
By a
Significantly.
wide margin.
Yeah, I mean, that's a grinder's game last Sunday,
Right,
right?
right.
You gotta really be into it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they go to a break, commercial break,
Okay.
and it's raining,
Okay.
and there's a lot of songs they could play
Oh, I know
that
the
have to
music
do
guy,
about the
by way.
rain.
I know the music guy.
Yeah, okay.
I know
Maybe
him.
you can send him a note.
Okay, I know the guy.
I know him too. He DJ'd my Christmas party.
I've been to concerts with him.
Okay, so a lot of songs you can do about the Led Zeppelin has songs about the rain. The Beatles have songs about rain.
The Alarm.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All these rain songs.
Supertramp. It's raining
Do
again.
you know which one they play?
Oh, no.
It's Raining Men.
Oh, I got to say something to him about that.
Come on, man.
Really?
It's Raining Men.
There were a lot of men there, and it was raining, Tony.
And there was less women than normal because of the weather. Come on, man.
Yeah, that's a pretty. I have to say something to Bob about that.
Will you report back next week?
I will.
Okay,
I think
good.
I'll send him a Facebook message. So this is a pretty funny story. It'll just take 1 minute. I go to a baseball game a couple years ago with some buddies of mine, and he is in my phone. The guy who does the music at the Orioles and and the Ravens is a friend of mine. Been to a couple concerts together. He's a Facebook friend, and we just became friends, and he's in my phone. So we're sitting out in the bleachers at 6 o'clock. The kids are out trying to fetch baseballs, and the music's being played, and I send him a quick text, and I say, play One Headlight by the Wallflowers for me.
Good song.
And he sends me back and says, got it, sir. And I put my phone back, and I sit there, and Dean wasn't with me, but I say, you know what song I'd like to hear? I haven't heard in a while. You guys like the Wallflowers? And the one guy said, yeah, I love the Wallflowers. I said, God, I'd like to hear One Headlight. And just as I say that, within 10 seconds, boom, it starts, and they're like, dude, it's a song you wanted to hear. So I said, you guys have one like that? You guys have one like that? And
Did you text him again?
so my friend said, I love Dave Matthews. I said, I'm a huge Dave Matthews fan. What song you want to hear? And he says, I don't know, Ants Marching. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's going to play here very well. Ants Marching, I don't know. Grab my phone, kind of discreetly, Ants Marching. Boom, boom, boom. It starts up right away. They're like, how are you doing this? And I was going to give him the shin limb thing, like I can't tell you. But I broke down and told him that I
So you were at that game.
Someone
requested it, Trading Man.
They might have, actually. It wasn't me, though. I wasn't there.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to give you our bold predictions for the Steelers and the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. We'll be right back.
Hey, Justin Tucker, you just bought some Royal Farms world-famous chicken. What are you going to do now? Got some chicken in my hand, gonna eat it, understand? It's crispy, golden brown, moist and tender going down.
Royal Farms.
Royal what?
Royal Farms, world famous.
Chicken legs, chicken thighs, don't forget the western fries. Don't you wish you had some too?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Royal Farms.
Royal what?
Royal Farms, world famous.
Chicken that's real, real what?
Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Welcome back to the Primary Residential Armchair Quarterback. I'm Tony Lombardi here with Dean Johnson and Drew.
You almost made it.
Forrester.
You almost made 3 of them. You almost got 3 in a row. Primary Residential Mortgage Armchair Quarterback. It's okay. It's no problem.
That's Dean Johnson. He's the guy that runs the whole show for
It is
Primary
kind of wordy.
Residential Mortgage.
We're not changing it now. 15 years later, we're not changing it.
All right. Not Johnson. I couldn't even say it right. Johnson Residential Mortgage? No. Okay,
This isn't a bold prediction. I guarantee I'm going to mess that up in future shows.
No doubt.
Okay.
It's very wordy.
Let's talk about bold predictions. I'll start off. The Steelers and Ravens this Sunday night in Heinz Field. I'm going to say, guys, that Joe Flacco and Ben Roethlisberger combine for 700 passing yards.
You know Flacco's never had a 400-yard game? Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Did you know that?
I did not know
He
that.
has never had a 400-yard game. And I definitely would have lost that bet. If you'd have said to me, let's make a bet one way or the other.
He's figured to be one in there in 11 years.
He's never
right?
had a 400-yard game.
So 700 yards between the two of them.
Man, that's a lot.
I've got a bold one.
Now, how much has that changed from the way that rivalry used to be? They smash mouth 17-14 games.
Yeah, right.
You know,
13-10, right.
Yeah. So a couple others. The 2 Browns, the receivers, Smoke and Antonio, they combine for 300 yards receiving.
Holy cow. Okay. Oh, my gosh.
And my prediction, you're not going to like this, Ravens fans, Steelers 34,
You better not.
Ravens 31.
You're terrible. Get him out of here. Let's you and I homer it up a little bit.
I'll homer it up. Okay, so
You
my
got
bold.
purple on, too.
You stole part of one of my bold predictions. So my bold prediction is John Brown, more receiving yards than Antonio Brown.
Wow, okay.
I think all the focus, like we talked about, is going to go against Antonio Brown.
That's a good one.
John Brown has been, he looks like he's becoming the guy. And if their secondary is what we think it is, those routes he's going to be running are going to be 10 yards further down the field. I'd like to see him break one. I think Joe's going to go to him often. John Brown, more yards than Antonio Brown. And Drew,
Okay.
despite not even trying to be a homer, Ravens 33, Steelers 30, late.
Love it.
Late.
Love it.
Tony, late.
I think this is
Stay awake that night, guys.
I think it's a 27-0 Steelers shot. No, I'm kidding. I for some weird reason, I think this gets played more defensively than we all think. And
Over under 51.
Yeah, I just have a funny feeling this is a 27-20 game, 27-23 sort of. I know the conventional thinking is they're just going to throw, and it's going to be up and down the field, and it's going to be like every other Pittsburgh game's been this year, 44-40.
They have a bad defense.
I know they do, but it's in their building. It's Sunday night. I just have a weird feeling that it's going to be lower scoring. I really think the Ravens are winning, and I'm 3-0 already this year. I said they'd win at home, lose in Cincinnati, win at home against Denver. try to make the best pick I can pick because I'm betting a lot now. I'm not betting anything, but I think the Ravens are winning.
What's the score?
I'm going to say they're going to win 27-23.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many times will Chris Collinsworth fawn all over Ben Roethlisberger?
Oh my Lord, 53.
He was even mentioned when he wasn't even in the game on Sunday night.
You should set the over/under for that on Drew's Morning
Yeah,
Dish.
you're right. At 21.5. How many times will you say this guy is one heck of
Are you
a
going
competitor?
to Are you going to track it?
But what's the catchphrase? There's got to be a buzzword, right? Competitor. I think competitor is the word because that's what he is.
Nah,
right?
you just.
Is there another word?
It doesn't have to be a specific word. It's just when you can hear the gushing in his voice.
God, this guy's some kind of quarterback.
He really knows how to keep plays alive.
Yeah.
It is 23.5 is the betting total.
23.5.
And you got to definitely take the over. That's 6 times a quarter. They're going to do it every
You know,
series.
I know you don't gamble, but I know you do drink. That could be a drinking game.
What about the other night, by the way, getting back to something real quick, they did the commercial-free thing at halftime, and the whole thing was a commercial. They did a commercial-free halftime
On ESPN?
sponsored by Genesis, but the whole thing was a commercial for Genesis. Every other sentence, either Genesis was on the screen or the guy was saying Genesis. It was hilarious, but there was no commercials, except the whole thing was a commercial.
They paid a lot for that
Oh,
commercial-free
my gosh,
segment.
no question, no doubt.
Okay, Dean, what's the name of the show?
It's the primary residential mortgage, no arms on our armchair quarterback.
Love it. He's got it.
All right, we'll be
let
back
him.
next week. See you next week, guys.
Good job, bye.